Today, we're going to be talking about just common fitness myths that we see a lot of our clients struggling with or coming to us with questions about or have done in the past. And so today we're going to get Stephanie's take on all of these little myths that you guys have probably done before or heard that you should do in the past. And we're going to tell you a little bit more about them, dive into them, maybe why you should or shouldn't do them, and some better ways about going about it.
Live your best life while working on your health and fitness goals. We're here to make your journey fun and inspiring. Welcome to the V-Shred Better Body, Better Life podcast.
Welcome back to the V-Shred Better Body, Better Life podcast. I'm your host, Vince Sant, and today I am here with Stephanie Mirich, V-Shred coach, mom of one, lover of nutrition and fitness, has her bachelor's of science in kinesiology and nutrition, is a NASM certified fitness nutrition specialist, and we are stoked to have you here on the podcast. Thanks for being here.
Thank you guys for having me. I'm super excited to be going over all these really interesting topics with you today.
Yeah, no, we got some good stuff in store. So let's start off with you. Give us a little introduction. I know I just did, but tell us a little bit about yourself.
So my name is Stephanie Mirich. I've been with V-Shred now almost 3 years. My background focuses heavily on nutrition. I really enjoy working with moms and women who are kind of going through, hormonal stuff and just really, struggling to kind of find their way through wellness. I live in Mexico, so that's an interesting part about me. So I live in Cabo San Lucas, and it's also kind of been a struggle for me here finding like the right balance between, eating well and chips and guac and margaritas every day. So I feel everyone's struggle on this, I promise you. I have a 7-year-old daughter. I have a ton of pets. I enjoy wine and tutor podcasts. So I think that pretty much sums me up.
Whole bunch of balance in there.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, cool. So jumping into the fitness myths, take us through some of the most common myths that your clients come to you with having done in the past.
Yes. So, the number one myth is, that I get from a lot of my clients. And, the first thing off the bat when they get their meal plan, they're like, this is way too much food. I've never eaten this much food in my life. I'm used to eating way less, but I haven't lost weight. And that is always the part that I, highlight, copy, paste on them. And I'm like, this is exactly part of the problem. We've all been, conditioned to believe that eating less equals losing weight. And on paper, it makes sense. When you do the math, you're like, well, yeah, that kind of makes sense. But when you're looking at it from a sustainability point of view and a long-term point of view, eating less actually shuts down your metabolism, puts your body into starvation mode, and your body then hoards, calories and fat versus burning them. So that's always the biggest one. I'm like, it's not about eating less. It's about eating better and incorporating that with a good workout program.
So backing up a step, why does it make sense? Why is this even a myth in the beginning or in the first place?
Well, yeah, I mean, it makes sense. People are like, well, I want to lose weight, so I've got to eat less food, right? Okay, yes, let's look at it from that point of view. But the myth comes from just over time doing that for such long periods, your body it can't sustain. Yes, of course, cutting calories or shifting your macros around works, but eating less just in general is not part of a long-term, sustainable, and most importantly, successful weight loss journey.
And then have you ever experienced this yourself? Did you ever go down a starvation diet path?
Oh, yeah. I mean, when I was in high school, I was a gymnast, I was a dancer, I went through that whole, I did the cabbage soup diet with my mom. I did the grapefruit diet.
Cabbage soup.
I did all of that stuff.
What's that one?
It was like it's literally all you eat is cabbage soup.
Ugh.
Like 3 times a day. It was disgusting. But, I mean, for like the first week, I dropped a couple pounds and I was like, oh, I feel great. But then as well, I dropped my energy, my ability to focus, all that kind of stuff went along with it. And like I said, after about a week of it, number one, my palate was just tapped. And number two, I just realized I can't do this forever.
Yeah.
So that is, I think we've all been there at one point in time. We've all been like, well, I'm just gonna, drink water and eat cucumbers for the next 2 weeks. And it's like it works in the moment, but it doesn't really function over time.
I was gonna say that's the issue is people do get almost immediate results from something like that.
Exactly.
And then they think that that's supposed to continue working. And so they either stick to it for much longer than what's enjoyable. But eventually what ends up happening is they hit a plateau, fall off the wagon, gain all their weight that they lost back, and just go through that cycle over and over again.
Yeah. And the one thing that I've always noticed about eating less is that when you get to that point where you can't do it anymore, then you kind of binge, you go the opposite way, and then it's even worse for you in the end. So, yeah.
So speaking about that, going in the opposite direction, I know a lot of people think that eating more always equals gaining weight. Tell us why that's not necessarily the case.
And again, it's all about perspective, and it's all about what you're talking about eating more of. If you are adjusting your macros and your calories to a point where your body is functioning on a healthy level, it's getting what it needs, and it has enough to also burn the energy that you're exerting in your workout or just everyday life. Then eating more or eating more / better makes more sense. Of course, if you're just, pounding donuts and junk food and processed food every day, that's not what we mean by eat more. It's about eating more of what your body actually needs to function. There's always kind of that balance of like, okay, are you over your macros too much? Do we need to kind of fix this a little bit? Are you working out in correlation to what you're eating? And that's a big thing too with a lot of my clients. They're like, well, can I eat this much food and still, be on my weight loss, journey? I'm like, you can if you're staying active with what you're supposed to be doing. Increasing your macros to get your metabolism back up and your hormones back in function only works if your nutrition and your fitness are hand in hand.
Right. And obviously we hear all the time that we shouldn't be eating carbs because or that there's all these different carb-free diets like keto or paleo is not necessarily carb-free, but it's specific carbs that you're not eating. What's your take or advice to anybody out there who thinks they shouldn't be eating carbs or has tried carb-less diets in the past?
Yeah, I mean, the whole keto paleo concept kind of ties in with the eating less concept. Again, it's great initially, and you might, your body's going to burn through its carb reserves in the first month, 2 months, 3 months, and you're gonna feel like $1 million and look like $1 million. But over time, once again, it's not sustainable. And also with these long-term keto or low carb diets, your body is just not getting all of the nutrients that it really needs at the end of the day. And it's funny you bring this up because I went yesterday to get my hair done, and the gal, she's done my hair for 10 years. And during my 2 years of keto that I did it, she was like, giving me all these products for my hair. She's like, your hair's falling out in chunks every time I do it. What's going on? Went yesterday. She's doing my hair and she's like, your hair feels so much thicker. She's like, what changed? And we were kind of going through the Rolodex in our head, trying to figure out what could have changed. And I'm like, you know what? I did start eating carbs again about 2.5 years ago and incorporating them like regularly into my diet. She's like, it's night and day with your hair. So in addition to it's stunting your weight loss over long periods of time, it's also a complete depletion of nutrients and minerals in your body, again, over time. So, for my clients that are like, you know what, Stephanie, I've been carb cycling now for 6 months. I want to try to do low carb. I'm like, you know what, that's fine. We can totally do that. But even then I try to keep them, between like 15 to 25% of their carbohydrate intake daily, because again, you just don't want to get your body into those negative reserves for such a long period of time, because it's not helpful at the end of the day.
So that's the lowest you'll generally go with a client who's requesting low carb?
Yes.
Okay.
requesting and like coming off of carb cycling where, their body is still getting used to having carbs every day. And, I always feel like going below 10 for someone that is coming off of a carb cycle, I just feel like it's a total shock for their body. And I'm always nervous that they're going to kind of, regress and be like, oh my gosh, all of a sudden I don't have any carbs. I want to go to Olive Garden and eat, 5 bread baskets like out of nowhere. So I always try to keep people who are transitioning into a low carb diet between those ranges. And then once they get comfortable, if they're enjoying it, they're doing well, okay, we can drop it down a little bit now that your body and your system are used to functioning on a little bit less.
And can you just clarify what exactly you mean when you say 10, 15, 25?
So those are the percentages of their carbohydrates per day. So that's the range that they want to stay within. How they get that range, it depends. Some people want to pull their carbs from fruits and veggies. Some people prefer to pull their carbs from grains and things like that. So if we're looking at, sticking between a range of 15 to 25%, most strict keto diets are going to be 10% and under. And that's a really, really low percentage. So if you're looking at sticking between 15 to 25%, you're still within a, moderately low carbohydrate percentage per day, but you're not in a complete depletion just yet.
What would you call not low? What would you call like a moderate range? And then what would you call a high range?
Moderate range would be like 25 to 35% of their daily percentages coming from their carbs. And then a high range would be, 35 to 45%, for their high carb days, if they're doing kind of more of a carb cycle kind of thing. But again, the 15 to 25 is for that transition step for a person who's maybe never done keto. They've just heard about it. They want to give it a shot. And it's just a slow introduction into that gradual depletion, so that they feel comfortable, they still have energy, and they're not going to regress the minute that their body feels that depletion.
And not to get too sidetracked, but you mentioned carb cycling, and I'm sure we'll talk about carb cycling a ton on this podcast. But give us a quick breakdown of what exactly you mean when you refer to carb cycling, in the sense of if they're following a carb cycling diet, there's the low, there's the moderate, and then there's the high. Just a quick 2-minute synopsis.
So the carb cycle is exactly that. You're cycling through highs and lows and moderation of carbohydrates every day. This is what's considered, the most beneficial for balancing hormones, getting the most out of your workouts, and just really keeping your body in constant metabolic confusion. So low carb days, not necessarily keto days, but just lower carb days, you're going to be sticking between about 10% to 25%. Your moderate carb days, 25 to 35. Your high carb days, 35 to 45. And the cycle goes every other day. So you're going to have, low, medium, high, low, medium, high. And then most people do the 2 lows back to back. Some of my clients like to make their 7th day kind of a tweener in between a low and a moderate, just so they're not like super hangry, back to back. But that's the metabolic confusion that, allows you to not only cycle through different foods and different metabolic cycles, but also to switch up your workouts to get the most of the workout depending on what carb cycle day you're on. Just like you wouldn't do the same workouts every day, you wouldn't eat the same macros every day, and they both go hand in hand.
And what kind of workouts match up best with each of those days?
So the moderate carb days, the majority of my clients, they find that working on like functional fitness, strength training, those days work best. Their high carb days, they're doing their cardio, they're doing their HIIT, they're kind of using all of their reserves to get it all out. And then their low carb days, they have options. Low carb days can be your rest days, especially, I feel like when they're first starting this, the low carb days, their bodies are still kind of getting used to it. So they're like, hey, I rested on my low carb day today. I'm like, hey, that's great. So low carb days can be rest, or they can be any kind of moderate activity that they love to do. Like I tell my clients, you know what, do your Zumba class on that day, do your hike, do your walk, do your swimming, do something that you are comfortable doing, are used to doing, and you know how much you can exert on those days or can't.
Right. Right. Yeah. Because love carb cycling, low carb days, they can get you if you're not used to them.
Yes. And that's usually what I get initially from folks. They're like, oh my gosh, I just kind of laid down. I'm like, it's normal. It's okay. Your body will adjust.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it's important to listen to your body while you're also carb cycling.
And then what's your take on like cheat days?
So I have a motto on that. I don't do cheat days. I do cheat meals.
Okay. Explain that. Why?
Pick one. So I find that the cheat days can get away from us. You know, you wake up, you're like, well, it's my cheat day. I'm going to go to breakfast with my family or my friends. You go to brunch, you've got chocolate chip pancakes, you've got mimosas, you've got whatever it is. Then you get home, it's my cheat day. I'm going to have a bag of chips and some dip while I watch football. It's my cheat day. I'm going to order a pizza for dinner. It's my cheat day. I'm going to have this brownie that I just made with, my kids. Before you know it, you've packed on an extra 1,000 calories or more at least just on that day. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's not even about the calories. It's about the amount of sodium and sugar and oils that you're putting into your body. So then what happens? You weigh in the next morning and you're just devastated, and you feel disappointed. You feel like, you're going to give up. So I always tell my clients, until we get close to your goal or at your goal, or we feel like we're getting a good grip on our ability to control, our portions and things like that, have a cheat meal. If you're going to go out for the burger, go out for the burger. Enjoy your burger. Maybe have a salad with it if you're going to get the burger. Have a light beer or a diet soda, whatever you're going to have with your burger. But get back on track as soon as you get home, or be on track throughout the day, because a cheat meal can set you back maybe 500 calories. A cheat day can set you back more, and just also psychologically, you just start getting out of your routine and out of your rhythm. And I feel like that's where the tip to the dark side happens for most folks.
When it comes to cheat days versus cheat meals, obviously it's
right.
Easier said than done to only limit to one cheat meal all week. What are some ways of like internally motivating, or what are some ways that you help clients push through the tough times when they're wanting cheat days?
Yeah. I mean, the main thing I always tell my clients is, remember how good you've been feeling. Remember how well you've been doing. All of those little small steps that you're taking, small victories, your pants are feeling better, you have more energy, you're sleeping better, just keep that in mind. Because, most likely if you're kind of going off plan in such a large way, you're going to regress from that, and it's going to be very frustrating. The other important thing for them to remember is, you are going to be able to have those foods, and it's not that you can't. You can certainly incorporate them into your program as long as you're accounting for them on the proper day when you're supposed to have them. So that's why I always tell my clients, I'm like, look, if you want to go have your burger, if you want to go have pasta, if you want to go have 2 slices of pizza, do it. Just work it into your high carb days. If it's something that you really need, or if you have a social event or a wedding, like, don't feel like you can't. Just accommodate for that food that you're going to be having.
Yeah, I love that, because obviously, I mean, like, I'm in advertisement videos where I'm eating pizza and donuts and everything, and I think people either don't believe that I eat any of that, or actually that's mostly what it is. People don't believe that I actually eat any of that food, and they're not really understanding the I guess like the inner workings of it. Or I'm not eating those every single day. I'm not eating them all day. I'm having the if I did want to have a little bit of ice cream at the end of my day, 3 or 4 days a week, I can, as long as I'm factoring that into my calories.
Exactly.
But if I do want to have a cheat meal, then obviously I'm just gonna kind of bust loose with it. And obviously I work out a ton, so I think that's another thing, is that working out more can obviously open up the possibilities of what you can eat and how much you can eat and how relaxed or lenient you can be on your diet. And so kind of finding that balance of what are you comfortable with eating? If you're not comfortable with what you're eating and you need more, well, you're probably going to have to make up for it in the gym with your workouts.
Exactly. And that's so important. That's what I always try to tell my clients. I'm like, look, if you know that you're going to an event, like I had a client who was going to a music festival a few weeks ago, and she's like, I'm going to be there all day. I'm, not taking food with me. I'm just going to, there's beer tents, there's barbecue tents, there's, I'm like, you know what, then get up that morning, do your workout, put in your work so that you can enjoy whatever you want to enjoy there. And it's not going to set you back, so much.
And you're not going to feel guilty about it.
Exactly. And it's not necessarily, that, you always hear people say, well, I work out so I can eat whatever I want. And, as we get older, it's harder to outrun a bad diet, no matter how far you're running. But there is something to be said about putting in the work so that you can have whatever you're going to have that day, wake up the next morning, not, fall off the scale with tears in your eyes, and just be like, all right, just gained a couple ounces, not the end of the world. I'm going to get back on track today.
Yeah. And I think that's the biggest piece of it, is just not allowing yourself to completely fall off the wagon, because everybody's going to have mess ups. Everybody's going to lose a little motivation day to day. They're going to eat something that they immediately regret eating right after.
Yep.
It's just about not allowing that to last longer than that short amount of time.
Exactly.
You mentioned running. I really quickly want to touch on that. What's your take on like cardio myths and running?
Well, I can tell you from personal experience, it did not work for me at all. I came to find out a few years ago that I have naturally elevated levels of cortisol. I actually haven't had a cup of coffee in 2 years because I had some hormone work done.
Wow.
And they were like, basically, when you wake up, it's like you already have had 4 cups of coffee. Like, you don't need any more adrenaline than you're already running with. And that in turn helped me to change my workouts, because I was doing 3 days a week running training with a gal that I was working with here, a personal trainer. And, we were doing 5-10 kilometers a day, then coming back, doing a hour-long workout in the gym. And I just found myself kind of not really losing, not really toning, not really going anywhere, just ending up super tired at the end of the day, and like dropping in my bed for a nap at 3:00 in the afternoon. And when I had this hormone work done, and I realized that my cortisol is just naturally high as it is, that forced me to change my workouts to basically just strength training and walking my dogs. And, I see these people, and even some of them are my clients, that say, well, I run 7 days a week and I do 20 kilometers a day. And I'm like, okay. And I always feel like Dr. Phil, like, how's that been working for you? Like, you've been doing that for 2 years and you're not getting any results from it. It's just more mental. It's your mental break to go and run and get it all out, which I totally get. But when you are constantly putting your body in a heightened state of basically fight or flight for so long, it does the opposite. Your body just shuts down. And that's what, these elongated periods of cardio do. So, the 15-minute hit, 20-minute hit, 30-minute walks, things like that are actually more beneficial to you in the end than, literally just spending an hour on the gym, on the Stairmaster, or, running 7 days a week and not seeing results.
And for most people, it's not enjoyable to do that. Like there's people who love it. There's people who are just are endurance athletes, and that's, like you said, it's their mental break. It's like how they break up their day, and they really enjoy it. They get the runner's high and all that. But most people, like my mom, my dad, growing up, I watched both of them basically live on an elliptical, live on a treadmill, live on a bike, and they looked the same until I started a fitness company. And now they're not doing that anymore, and they're following like our Move program, and they're doing HIIT workouts, and I think they also have a Peloton. And so like they do a bunch of different styles of training than what they used to do, and they don't do the steady state cardio or take the steady state cardio approach anymore. And they're both in much better shape than when I was a kid, which is cool. But then like when it comes to like the meal aspect of it, there's also the super common belief of the 3 meals a day, right? Because that's what everybody's kind of raised on is you have like from when you're a child, you have your breakfast before school, you have your lunch at school, you get home and you have dinner. And that's kind of how you're brought up is those 3 meals a day. And that generally carries over into adulthood and it just keeps getting passed on. What's your, why is that a fitness myth?
It's a fitness myth because it doesn't really account for everybody's individual needs. It doesn't account for everybody's metabolism differences. It doesn't account for everybody's scheduling differences. It doesn't account for, working out more, needing more, working out less, maybe needing less at the time. I have clients, I myself did intermittent fasting for about 1.5 years, and it worked for me in that time period. It doesn't work for me anymore because as soon as I changed my workouts, and I get up at 4 a.m. So for me, not having breakfast or lunch until noon or 1 is like, I can't do it.
Yeah.
So, I think the 3 square meals a day, like you said, it's something that is ingrained in us from being kids. And for some people that does work, they're just like, hey, I don't need snacks. I don't need this. I just need my 3 meals a day. Some people thrive on, 7 mini meals a day, 8 mini meals a day. Some people do intermittent fasting where they're just getting their, lunch and dinner and calling it a day. But I think as we progress through life, as our bodies change, as our metabolisms change, your body will tell you what it needs and how much of it needs. It's just a matter of being in tune with it and giving it what it's asking you for, whether it's mini meals, 2 meals a day, or 3 square meals a day, whatever that is.
What do you generally, when you're creating a plan for a client who doesn't necessarily have a recommendation, where do you usually go with it?
I always go with breakfast, lunch, dinner, and 2 snacks a day. Because I find that, again, most people are coming from a background of, I want to eat less, I want to lose weight, so I'm going to eat less. And they're most likely not getting anywhere near their, intended macros per day. And so I always feel like adding the 2 snacks with the increase in their workout, with eating more, getting their metabolism revved up. Usually the first week when I get their check-ins, they're like, I was kind of forcing myself to eat some of the food. Like, I don't know if it's going to work. And then by week 2, week 3 check-in, they're like, I think I need more snacks. They're like, all of a sudden their bodies
metabolism
like,
firing
okay,
and
yeah, like I'm getting enough food, so I need a little bit more so I can keep burning. So I always try to put at least 2 snacks into their meal plan, just to give them a little bit of buffer. Where they want to put their snacks is up to them. They want to do it midday, end of the day, evening snack, doesn't matter. So yeah, unless they're like, hey, I do IF, I just need 2 meals a day and I'm good. But I find that for the most part, those snacks can become saviors as you keep going throughout your journey.
Right. And I was going to ask, you kind of touched on it, are there optimal times for those snacks?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, it depends on the client. Like I have a lot of clients that are, shift workers, they're nurses, they're doctors, they're, police officers, things like that, firemen. And they're like, I don't live a normal schedule. So sometimes breakfast happens at 8:00 at night and, dinner happens at 7 a.m. So the key is to basically about 2 hours before you actually lay your body down to rest. If you can avoid eating from that time, that's great. It just gives your body really a chance to digest your food. So you're not just eating a meal and then laying down. And, if you're looking for optimal energy in your morning, eating within an hour to an hour and a half max after you wake up. It doesn't have to be a huge breakfast. It can be, a Greek yogurt with some nuts. It can be something to just signal your body that I'm ready to go. I'm ready to start. Let's start giving it fuel, basically. And then as far as the snacks during the day, I always tell people, listen to your body. If you need it at 3:00, have it at 3:00. If you need it at 11:00, have it at 11:00. your body, again, it's always going to tell you what it needs. It's just a matter of listening to it.
And then more as generalized advice, not necessarily about just the 3 meals a day in general. It's just about like everything that we've talked about. How do you help change or reframe how your clients look at these myths and take new action?
Honestly, I find that I don't really have to convince them on it because they start seeing it themselves as they go through the program. Like I said, initially, once I send the plan, it's, 9 times out of 10, my inbox is filled the next morning going, oh no, no way, this is too much. I'm not gonna be able to follow this. You're crazy, this and that. I'm like, look, let's just give it a shot for 1 week. If after 5 days, you feel like this is too much, or you need whatever myth that they're coming back at me with, I'm like, let's just give it a shot. And it happens more so with the workouts than the food, because people are used to doing, like you said, an hour on the elliptical and then an hour going around the gym, lifting weights mindlessly and not really knowing, what the process is or what to do. And they're like, so wait, I just have to do like this 20-minute thing a day and this is going to work. I'm like, again, let's rehash this after a week. And if it's not working, we'll fix it. And then here comes the check-in, 3 pounds down, 4 pounds down, energy is better, they're sleeping better, so on and so forth. So I find that initially I'm having to kind of like push them in that direction. But once they start seeing it, then everything gets, dispelled.
And would you say that's probably the most common thing that you see people coming to you with, is they're struggling with those same things?
They're struggling with seeing the amount of food in their eyes, seeing the amount of food, and struggling with how they, how this relationship is going to go. How can I eat this many macros? How can I have pasta in my diet 2 times a week and only be working out doing, this video, and I'm going to lose weight? I'm like, let's give it a shot. That's all I'm asking.
That's awesome. Well, cool. Do you have anything else that you would like to say? Any other myths that we didn't talk about when you're working with clients?
Not so much myths, but it's just really a matter of breaking down the taboo mindset that folks are coming in with. And I always tell people, I'm like, look, if you can get out of your head and if you can just try to restructure just for the next few weeks, this process, if you going in, if you think it's not going to work, it's not going to work. That's just the law, right? Everybody knows that. Mm-hmm. So coming in with an open mind, saying, I've come this far, I'm invested in the program, I'm here, let me give it a shot, and just seeing how eventually all of those myths will be checked off, and you will see that it's not about having less, it's about having more of what is better for you.
That's awesome. But that's all I have for you. Really appreciate you being here on the podcast. I think we covered a lot of awesome stuff, and hopefully to all the listeners out there, you guys got some action items that you guys can move on that can help you moving forward with your journey. Stephanie, thank you for being here. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you, guys. So yeah, I hope everybody gets what they need out of this, and is open to creating new habits and leaving old ones behind.
Thanks, guys. Make sure you stay tuned. Come check out the podcast. We've got tons of new content dropping every week. But before we wrap up, if anybody out there is looking for some extra help with getting back on track and trying to lose weight or achieving whatever your fitness goals are, we do have certified personal trainers, certified coaches who are available and eager to create a customized plan for you based on your body. And our trainers have already helped hundreds of thousands of men and women to lose weight, tone up, build strength, get healthier, feel better, look better. And we're ready to work with you as well. And this is something where we'll figure out everything for you. We'll do all the calculations, figure out all the macros, the calories, what foods to eat, what foods to avoid, when to work out, what those workouts look like. And so if you guys want to get more details on that, just check out the link in the description below. I know you will absolutely love it. But Thank you again for tuning in today, and we will see you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of V-Shred's Better Body, Better Life podcast. Whether you're doing one of our programs, taking our supplements, or just doing things on your own, tune in every week for exclusive content with Vince, V-Shred trainers, and special guests as they share valuable tips around motivation, workouts, food, and living a healthier lifestyle. See you next time.